Welcome to F1 25. So, for the last 8 years, the hardest level in the F1 game franchise has been the 110% AI difficulty. And that's why, in this video, in my first ever race on F1 25, I'm going to try and go from last to first around the new and reversed Austrian Grand Prix track. And of course, I'm going to be doing this up against the 110% AI. Is this actually possible? I have absolutely no idea, because I've just loaded in a time trial setup, and by the way, here's your proof that I'm actually racing against the 110% AI, and it's time to see how quick I am on this new game. Anyway, that's enough of my waffle. It's now time for the start of my very first race on F1 25. And one thing that you can see pretty quickly as the lights go out, this game's AI stink at race starts. I mean, if I wasn't such a wimp going into turn 1, I would have gained 3 places instantly. However, by the reverse second corner, I mustered up the courage to dive up the inside of both Saubers, which brought me up to 16th place. And for the next couple of corners, I was stuck behind Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon, who were going side by side in this new middle sector. And I could not allow myself to get stuck behind these two. Into this reverse long left-hander, I sent it up the inside of both of them, which was my second double overtake of this race, and I was just on fire. Next up was the penultimate corner of this track, and on the entry I did not make any overtakes. However, going down this back straight, I had 85% of my battery to use, and I was about to absolutely dump it in overtake mode. By picking up the slipstream of Carlos Sainz, I managed to get past him and Fernando Alonso along this back straight, and that was my lap 1 overtakes completed. Somehow I'd already gained 8 places, and I was starting to believe what I've been seeing about this year's AI being slower than usual. Anyway, it's now time for some more of my overtakes, and we're going to do this pretty quickly. I made my next overtake on Jack Doohan by almost crashing into him at the old turn 3, but by forcing him offline, I got past him. And after this was Kimi Antonelli, who I took a bit of a risk whilst overtaking, but this dive bomb brought me up to 10. Next up was Liam Lawson, and because he was on hard tyres, I knew that I couldn't afford to get held up by him in the reverse first and middle sector, so I went for a pretty risky dive bomb. However, this just about got me ahead of him. However, my rush to get past him would be complete nonsense, as I literally could not catch up to Pierre Gasly, at least until this happened. Liam Lawson quite literally spun on his own and caused such a pile up of front wings at the penultimate corner the red flag was brought out. This was just perfect for me, as it allowed me to catch up to the pack in front and get a quick change of tyres. By the way, if you need proof that this was my first race, here is me reading through the red flag help screen, as I had never had one before. Anyway, it's now time to race, and as the lights went out for the second time in this Grand Prix, everything was about to go downhill. Initially, I had a pretty decent start from 9th on the grid. However, after being on the outside for turn 1 and turn 2, I was about to leak so much track position. But to be honest, a lot of this was my fault, because I've got absolutely no idea what I was doing just driving off the track at turn 2, and in total I managed to lose 3 positions, which was a disaster. However, I wasn't going to give up easily, and I was hunting down Carlos Sainz to make up for lost time. Into the long left-hander, I dove up his inside and squeezed him wide onto the exit, which brought me up to 11th place. Next up was the penultimate braking corner on this track, and I knew that I could at least make one more move on this lap, which is exactly what I did, and Jack Doohan had been dispatched of. And next up was Liam Lawson, and I made a very similar move, but I wasn't quite finished on lap 8 just yet. Even whilst overtaking the Kiwi, I still had a very decent exit, and I was on the hunt for Pierre Gasly, at least until this happened. Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that, but I was pretty wound up by this, so I was about to take another massive risk into the new turn 1. And thankfully this risk paid off, and I was now back into the top 8. So it actually took me a whole lap to catch up to Lewis Hamilton, and I made a pretty simple DRS move on him. I was really just desperate not to repeat what happened with Pierre Gasly. And next up was Alex Albon, another simple move, and I was now into the top 6 of this Grand Prix. And here's where the fun really starts. In the next 2 laps I made 2 extremely risky moves up the inside of both Yuki Tsunoda and Charles Leclerc. I just about squeezed my way past on both occasions, and it was absolutely worth it, as this brought me up to 4th place. And then something was about to happen that was going to turn this entire race on its head. Lando Norris, the leader of this Grand Prix, was retiring from the race, and I thought that that was going to be that. It was brilliant news for me, as it was a free position, but nothing else. At least until half a lap later, where the FIA brought out the safety car for this, which was far from ideal, as I now had a crucial decision to make. Honestly, I did not believe that I could beat Max Verstappen on pure pace, especially with the fact that his medium tyres were going to be in great shape, considering he could tyre save for this entire safety car period. period. And because of this, I decided to go into the pit lane for a stop onto new, fresh, medium tyres. And honestly, I instantly thought that I had blown it. Not a single car behind me joined me in the pit lane, which meant that I dropped all the way back down to the back of the grid. And although I had fresh tyres on the entire grid and 9 laps to go, I knew that I was going to have to pull off the drive of a lifetime to win this Grand Prix. And so when the safety car pulled into the pit lane, I knew that I had to make overtakes extremely quickly. I instantly got past Ollie Bearman, and after this, I was on the hunt. On the very same lap, I also made an overtake on Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon up the inside at back-to-back corners. And on the exit of the third from final corner, I had way better traction than Isaac Hadjar. That was another position gain. And at this point, I was absolutely flying. On this lap, I made 4 overtakes in 1 lap by also getting past Gabriel Bortoleto, and I wasn't stopping here. And lap 18 was all about taking risks. First up was Nico Hülkenberg, who I was convinced that I was going to crash with, but I just about managed to sneak up his inside. And then after this, I made a double overtake on both Lance Stroll and Kimi Antonelli, which was super crucial. After this was Carlos Sainz, who I just slipstreamed past. Lap 18, another 4 overtakes made. And lap 19 started with a clear intent to gain positions, as I somehow managed to switch back Jack Doohan going through turn 1. And it is really good to see the AI being able to actually race side by side, and to finish this lap, I sent it up the inside of Liam Lawson. I now had 6 laps to go and 6 cars to overtake. Right, so I'm not going to lie to you, the next 16 seconds of this video are simply me trying to reach the 8-minute mark so I get paid more by YouTube. So whilst we wait, please do tell me if you're enjoying this video. Like, subscribe, tell me your thoughts on F1 25, what you had for breakfast, and that's 16 seconds. Back to the video. And on lap 20, I continued to make overtakes. I sent it up the inside of Pierre Gasly in the second of the double right-hand corners, and I finished the lap just on Charles Leclerc's rear wing. I tried to go up the inside and around the outside of him down the main straight, but he was focused on cutting me up and getting past Alex Albon, so I hung back into turn 1. And these two going side by side into turn 1 allowed me to be super lucky, as I managed to make a double overtake as they squabbled. And this was huge, as it probably saved me an entire lap of running in their dirty air. And because of this, by the end of the next lap, I was right on Yuki Tsunoda going down the main straight and forcing him to defend fresh air. Going into turn 1, I flew around the outside of him, and I was up to 3rd with 3 laps to go. I now knew that this race was going to come down to the very final lap, and it's now time to catch up to the leading 2 drivers. This did take me a while, but fortunately for me, Max Verstappen was leading the race on 9 lap older medium tyres compared to myself, and as you can see, I was gaining on them out of every single traction zone. And by the time that I caught up to both George Russell and Max Verstappen with 1 lap and 1 corner to go, they were about to go side by side, and I knew that if George got ahead, I had to follow him through. Turns out he did get ahead of Max, and I absolutely nailed the exit out of the final corner, and with my entire EOS battery charged for this final lap, I powered past Max Verstappen into 2nd place. I now had 10 corners and 3 DRS zones to get past George Russell to complete this challenge. And I'm not going to waste your time going through the first and middle sector of this final lap. Literally nothing happened. I was just setting myself up for the final 2 braking corners. Going through the penultimate corner, I kept it super clean, and coming onto this back straight, I now had 80% of my battery to use. And I was about to dump all of it onto the longest straight of this track. I had a superb exit, slipstream DRS, and an opponent with less than 10% battery. I managed to absolutely fly past George Russell and get into the lead of this race. I had nailed this unplanned 2-stop strategy and completed my first challenge in F1 25. Thank you all so much for watching, and before you go, I've created a Discord server exclusively for my YouTube audience, so go and join up. Link in description. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll chat to you all in that server.